Welcome, mortals, to Mondays in the Mortal Realms. Very excited to be here. We had a little mini release this weekend. We were thinking there'd be a lot more, but
Yeah.
but that's okay. There was, listen, fair to say, there was a lot of cool old world stuff.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
We don't want to anger anybody, but we probably are with what I'm about to say. We're not gonna cover any of it really today. The old world stuff. We're gonna cover
Right.
the Sigmar stuff.
I don't think anyone comes here to listen to old world stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't think so either.
There's
but
places to go if you
yeah,
want to listen to old world stuff.
that's true. But briefly, any thoughts on the new old world stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like big armies and old square bases and
Yeah.
you've got a Bretonian army in your cupboard that you want to get out, then
Then
great,
you're
there
probably
go.
very excited right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. What we are personally a little more excited for, I believe, is this guy who I know is already immediately somewhat controversial, right? Ionis, what is his name?
Ionis Cryptborn.
Ionis Cryptborn. Has he shown up in lore previously?
He was the original Lord Relictor of the game. So
Okay.
back in the first edition, in the first box set, he was the named Relictor, that guy.
There he is. I
Yeah.
was going to ask you
And
about
he,
that.
he disappears. He gets they kind of get separated and he gets brought down and then you don't really hear from him again. And it's kind of like this. It's been a mystery that maybe no one, really cared about. But Vander's Hammerhand, he is like the Relictor for Vander's Hammerhand.
Okay.
The two are like bros.
Okay.
And the first books
they
are around
mentioned
these
that.
two characters.
They mentioned that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on this model, Steven?
It's very cool.
Yeah.
I like Well, okay, first off, I like that it's a dragon not on a flying base. Like,
Yeah.
10 out of 10 for that, because I don't like flying bases. So
Nobody.
very
Especially
cool.
those flying bases.
Yeah, they're massive. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I like the posture and the sort of the dynamicism of the model. It's very elegant. It's very cool. And he looks awesome. Like, I don't know where he got his awesome new armor, but it's very cool. He looks like Skeletor in plate mail.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna mess you up. So he's very, very cool.
When you first saw this model, like, what, Sunday morning, on your phone, in your bed, half awake.
Literally how I looked at these.
That's how
previews.
everybody
That's
looks at
literally
this
how I
stuff.
looked
Right,
at
of
these
course. So
things.
yeah, no, that's no surprise. That's all of us. Did you think it was a Stormcast Eternal?
No.
What did you think it was? A Bone Reaper? Or some kind of new death model? Like,
Yeah, I thought it was. Well, I think the dragon gives it away. Because it is just like one of the drakes.
Yeah.
The like sort of Drake's One Templar mounts.
Right.
But no, when I first looked at him, again in my sleep addled state, I was like, oh, this is a. Like what? I didn't even know what it was. I was like, "Oh, is this a new death thing?"
Another vampire.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a vampire lord.
Yeah.
On a
I mean, it's not far off. It's like,
It's
oh
not.
look, another named Stormcast character to add to the gigantic pile. But
Yeah.
it's cool that they've brought an OG character from the lore of the game, and he's returned, and he looks cool. But part of me's like, where's just the Lord Relictor plastic kit to build you can't get Lord Relictors, right? They are like
You can't. And
super hard to get.
and they're so good. It's
Yeah, they're great.
It's just
And that model still holds up. I love that model.
that model holds up. And for game rules, if you don't know what they do, they just pick a Stormcast unit and give them +1 save.
Yep.
I mean, that's mostly what they do.
Yeah, that's more
And-
or less.
but that's
they used
like-
to also do crazy teleport shenanigans.
Okay.
And,
They can do, or they have a mortal wound thing they can also do.
Yeah.
Which is a situation. You and I played a game where you I think finished off Marathi with him.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the mortal wound thing. You're like, nobody ever does this, but I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
and then,
Zap. She's dead. There you go.
He's about to come out in a box with 2 Stormdrake Guard. I think this box is gonna be popular.
Yeah.
Even though Stormcast are underperforming right now, competitively speaking, the Stormdrake Guard are cool. And
I think it's cool that they have a second hero to fit in with the Drake Sworn builds.
Yeah.
We don't know what his rules are.
Nope.
But I mean, I imagine he's going to be probably quite good.
Probably.
He looks really cool.
We know he's a Lord of Elector, so
Yeah.
he might be able to give +1 save to him.
Yeah.
Imagine a Lord of Elector on on a Drake's.
Yeah, I would take that.
That alone we would take.
If there are options where you can put him on a Dracothian guard or you can put him on a dragon, I'd be like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. Like, that seems great. So yeah, hopefully he adds a new element to the build, but also, you know, I mean, ideally he just complements Stormcast armies in general, and you know, you could take him in a non-Drake army. But yeah, it'll be interesting to read his rules. Again, he's a pretty important character from the lore. It does make me suspect, though, that maybe 4th edition Sigmar's gonna hit his button and we're gonna get the Relictor Temple, whatever it's called.
More of him.
Yeah,
more of him.
They're a whole separate chamber where they have their own guard, and I'm like, okay, so he's come back. It's gonna be Skeletor Chamber.
I hadn't even thought of it, but
the Skeletor Chamber is coming.
Now that you say it, I think I just think you're right.
Yeah, because think back to like when they did this last time, we got like Lord Croak was one of the heroes they did in the sort of like between 2 and 3, and then we get the whole new wave of Seraphon. So yeah, not sure. I hope that isn't the case, but it's weird that they choose now of all time to bring him back.
And he's like doing stuff in Shyish.
Yep.
We're gonna get like this in Flesh Eater Court. Are we gonna get like? Are these the Stormcast turn? Is this and Flesh Eater Courts the 4th ed box? We have to talk about the 4th ed box every.
I've not thought about that.
We have to talk about the 4th ed box every episode.
That's the
4th ed box.
I'm gonna. I mean, you might be right.
I mean, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends. I don't know if like Flesh Eater Courts are gonna play a big pivotal role in like the Age of Sigmar story. So I think it will. We'll see what the lore is in the book. Because they have foreshadowed the what do they call him, the Summer King or whatever it is, which I'm convinced is.
We talk about him every stream.
The final Mortarch, right? So it's like, you know, yeah, I could see it, but I wonder if they'll get that army out before the book. Before the box set, rather.
Okay. Also released this guy. So this is
look at this little fella.
Yeah, Belthanos, first Thorn of Karnoth.
Yeah. So if you might not know, for those of us who did play back in the old world days, the posturing of him and the way he's holding the horn and the weapon, very, very iconic pose of the old God of the Hunt, like the original, like, you know, Kurnos. Who was in the Wood Elf army. It's basically the same model, but they've turned him into a full-on tree guy. And put him on a giant arachnid, which I'm always down for the giant insects.
Yeah.
The insects are cool.
This thing he's riding is amazing looking. This is a super cool model. How big is this thing?
It looks big, because those guys are, like, pretty tall.
That's, is that gonna be Stonehorn base, or is that gonna be Ghost Keel base?
No, maybe a Ghost
Keel base?
I don't know what a Ghost Keel is, so I don't know.
Yes, you do. I
imagine it's probably a monstrous cavalry base.
So
like monstrous cavalry.
So
like a Mournfang base.
Mournfang base.
Yeah, I think so.
There's one in between those two sizes. And I'm trying to think of something that's on it in Sigmar. Tree Lady.
Oh.
Dracha is on that.
And all the tree men are on that base as well. No,
it's not quite as big as a Stonehorn.
I think that might be too big. I think it looks... Because if you look at, like, his legs are, like, either side of the bug, and the bug doesn't seem much wider than him.
Yeah.
So I think the thinner, longer base, maybe, because it goes back quite a bit. It's quite a long model.
Another super cool box. All these boxes are making me like, that's what I would want to...
They're great entry points.
They're great entry points. This is a great box. Him... 3 Spite Revenants, and then 3 Karnoth Hunters. Yeah. And the Spite Revenants can also be the Lancers, right?
Yeah. No, it's a great box. Like, you know, I'll be curious to see what I assume these are also going to be Regiments of Renown, so I'm going to be curious what those rules are, because you could, in theory, take this in another Order army.
Yes.
So I'm curious what special rules it has.
They are both Regiments of Renown, and I think, what if, we were chatting this earlier, is there a chance? Probably not. That you can take the Regiment of Renown with Skullboy in a Death Army?
No. Because it's a Stormcast box.
Yeah, but look at it. He's been hanging out in Shyish.
Yeah, it looks like he's been learning how to kill Death, not how to hang out on it. Yeah,
not hang out with him. Yeah, but look at his armor.
He's definitely been raiding some...
Is that camouflage?
Yeah. He strolls into Bonereaper houses and they're just like, hey man, what's up? Praise Nagash, whatever.
I love it. Okay, now you mentioned regiments of renown. They have said that yes, they are regiments of renown. They're going to be in the new Dawnbreakers book, The Long Hunt.
Yeah. Again, I'm not predicting what factions we're seeing
Horrible.
in these books, because I would have not
awful.
said Stormcast and Kurnoth. Like
Stormcast, Sylvaneth, Ogres, and here's a wild one: Fire Slayers again.
Yeah. Yeah, again.
Again. I think we should just stop.
I agree.
The Ogre one is interesting because it uses the new Gorgers. Which is cool.
Because those models are great.
Basically, apparently what it does is it turns all the terrain into living eating things that Gutbusters and Gorgers ignore. Gorgers are actually one of these weird... There's a few Ogre units that aren't Beastclaw Raiders or Gutbusters.
Yeah, they're like the weird tag-along groups.
It's these guys and... who's the priest?
The Man-Eaters?
No, Man-Eaters are Gutbusters.
Oh.
The Fire Eater.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it won't help me as a Beastclaw Raider player, but I don't need help. But this is cool for... although I could... No, could I take this Regiment of Renown? Can you take a Regiment of... No, you can actually, can you?
What? You're not...
I'm not finishing
Finish the sentence.
You can't take a... I think you can't take a Regiment of Renown from your own book.
Yeah, you can.
You can? Oh, that's cool. Well, I could do that.
I think the only restriction is you have to be in that Grand Alliance. That's the only...
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's any restriction other than that.
Interesting. So, these guys are... because these guys are on their way to me, along with the Wilder Corps.
Oh, nice.
Engine hunters. Now, we loved the new Fire Slayers box.
Yes, it was very cool.
The Warcry band. They released a Regiment of Renown for them, which I think is super cool. Because people want to buy those. Because they're the coolest Fire Slayers ever.
Yep.
And it lets a Magnadroth pick them up, move, and then drop them off.
I love that.
Yeah. There's so few transports in this game.
I want to see some fun conversions of, like, where does the Magmadroth store them? Like, does he have a little thing on his belly that they hide in? Or do they,
they
hold on to the side of it?
Yeah, they hold on to the side.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some cool modeling opportunities there to have a warband like literally like hanging off a Magmadroth.
Well,
cool.
Yeah, like the Drukhari, right? The Drukhari vehicle has all the witches actually modeled on it. Yeah.
I picture it like the Fire Slayer version of like Fury Road. You know, all the guys on the cars and like
exactly.
Sticks. It's like that, but a big fire lizard.
Wholly within 6 inch and more than 3 inches from all enemies. So. You're covering some ground with these guys, actually. They have to be wholly within 6.
How far can the Magmadroth move?
It is, I believe, 12.
Oh, okay, so yeah, you get some...
I think it's 12. I don't
considering how slow Fire Slayers are, I think that's a pretty huge increase in mobility.
It's actually almost... It's one of those things where it's wholly within 6 to pick up. You move, I think it's 12, it might be 10. Either way, it's a lot. Then you drop them off wholly within 6. So it's actually an insane amount of movement.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah. Listen,
cool.
We were expecting more, but I'm happy with what we got. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still in that aftershock of 40k coming out, new edition. It gets all the attention.
We also had an insane amount of releases in September.
We did.
Yeah.
It's been very busy, and I think the show was cool that they sort of gave every game a little bit. You know, I saw the new Striking Scorpions that everyone's known about forever, and they look pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, if you're into the Eldar stuff, I thought they were a nice resculpt.
Yeah.
And I like the Scouts.
The Scouts are particularly cool, right?
Yeah, they were cool. The Warhammer Old World stuff, obviously, people have been waiting to see. I think it's been a good, barometer of, like, how many new kits is an army going to get? How many repackages are we going to get? Yeah. What stuff are they going to touch? What stuff are they going to touch? And I think, we now kind of know what that's going to look like. You're going to get a bunch of new heroes, maybe 1 or 2 new plastic kits with multi-purpose roles.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get some resin heroes, and then you're going to get reboxes, and that's going to be
it.
The trend.
Now, what do you think, before we move on to today's topic?
Yeah.
What do you think old world players, I think the big question a lot of old world players probably have is, will my old world army see this treatment that Bretonnians got? So... And it's weird, right? Because some armies are in a place where they are being developed in Sigmar, like Skaven or Beastmen, or though Beastmen really haven't been developed much in Sigmar. But presumably they will, right? Death has kind of been scattered to the winds, I guess. Soulblight Gravelords are the closest thing to
Yeah,
the Empire
they
counts.
they transitioned with the least disruption.
Right.
Although even then, they added like an entirely new sub faction.
The
And
Vierkros
yeah.
and all this stuff. So
Um,
so are Tomb Kings coming back, or like
Yeah, so Two Kings are the other major faction at the start.
okay,
So it's Bretonnians and Tomb Kings.
that has
Now,
been
they-
announced. Okay,
Yes, yeah,
okay,
they've shown
okay,
Tomb King
okay.
models. They've shown like the new Tomb prints and stuff
That's
like that.
right. That's right.
So
okay.
I think that's why they've gone with Tomb Kings, because it's the most distinct to the old world now.
Along with Bretonia, that is now basically gone.
Yeah,
Just-
so they were the two factions that didn't
Okay.
really in any way come across. Although you could argue, we'll get into it with the Bone Reaper book, that there is some DNA that came across in terms of stylized,
yeah.
elements. But I think if you're an old world player, or you did, and your faction fits within the time period they've picked, I think odds are you're going to get some new kits, you're going to see some new stuff, and you're going to see some re-releases.
I guess a lot of it also then comes down to elves.
Well,
different
that's the
elves
thing. None of that's going to be there, because all of this centralized, the whole story and the whole setting is focusing on the Empire and the immediate areas around the Empire.
Okay.
So we're not going to get high elves, we're not going to get dark elves, we're not going to get lizard men.
Okay.
We're not going to get ogres.
What part of the country of the world is this?
This is the Europe part of the
Okay,
old
okay.
world. So like the
Looking at that map again was wild. I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's right.
basically mainland Europe, and
Okay.
it's regions around it. So I imagine Skaven are a bit weird, because Skaven are in tunnels everywhere, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were a big element. They lived underneath the Empire for a long time. So yeah, I still would hedge my bets on Skaven not getting an AOS refresh, but getting a old world refresh,
Really?
and then those models transitioning over.
That's wild. I'm curious what they're going to do with
Well,
that.
Skaven are a weird one, because if they want to AOS-ify them and give them a new range, I think they do a lot of complete redesigning and bring them more in line with faction reinventions.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're doing them in the old world, because they are the faction they were.
Right.
So it puts that faction and Beastmen in a very weird position
Yes.
of they kind of exist in two worlds, but they belong to neither.
Yeah. So
if you overcommit to one, it kind of pulls them out of the other one.
yeah, this is actually pretty interesting, right? What do you do with that information?
You could cut the faction straight down the middle and rename them. So, like, you could call the Skaven in Thingy, you could call them, denizens of the under cities or whatever, and give them a entirely new identity,
Yeah.
and then just leave Skaven in their little time capsule box, and they can just live there. Or you refresh the range for everyone,
Yeah.
but then you have to maintain that DNA of the place where it originated. So,
Now-
I'm curious what they're going to do.
Now,
about that.
Soups actually brings up a good point. He says, so basically the demon problem, but AOS is,
Yeah, the demon problem.
but both 40K and AOS have actually done a good job in the past 5-10 years of starting to give these two identities because of the stuff they've added to it.
they've done more like the mortals of both sides. So you've got like
Yeah.
the Primarchs and the Space Marine legions
And
that
then
swore a legion, and then you've got the mortals
Right.
that worship these entities, and I think that's been a good way. of
And then
doing
you're
it.
kind of like, oh, well, Disciples of Zinch are cool, all the mortals are so cool, and I'll throw some screamers in. Or
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Or you take 50 pink horrors because
Because
That's
they're
what's good.
just
And Kairos.
just always good.
then you just
Speaking of soups, thank you as always for the Get the memberships. We
Thank you,
super
Soups.
support it. Thank you for supporting us. We super
No, we're supportive
Support
of you
super-
supporting us with
super
soups.
from
things.
super.
Yeah.
Listen, we're talking. We want to go through, and we said, what's a good thing to just have us go through in the coming months in the presumed lead up to 4th edition, Age of Sigmar, and we thought that it would be a cool time to go through the books and talk about why. Basically, the premise is, why would you play this book? Why would you buy this book? Why would you collect this army? Why would you play this army? Why today, Ossiarch Bonereapers?
Oh, so
Right.
this is like a sales pitch.
This is sort of a sales pitch.
I like that idea.
Because I don't feel like there's any armies. I know there's one army that you will make a sales pitch against.
Really?
I think there's
What army
one.
is that?
Do you not?
Whatever are you talking about?
Yeah, I think there's one army that you'd be like, no, don't play this army. I
say there's two.
Two? Okay. All right. I know what one of them is. All right. Well, I'll wait to be surprised for the other one. Okay. Steven, I said I wanted to start today with a quick summary of this faction.
Okay.
This is like one of your main armies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm already sold on this faction.
Yeah, but give me a quick summary of this faction. Say, work in a little bit of everything, like right out of the gate. Give me a quick summary. How would you describe these to somebody? You're describing them to a 40k player that doesn't play Sigmar. How would you describe them? Oh, and you can't use a 40k analogy.
Oh, what? Like, as soon as you said that, I was like, dang, I got a great one, and then you took it away from me.
Okay, no, let's do it. Let's get it out.
No, because we're not selling this to 40k people.
Okay,
we're selling this to anyone who wants to get into the game.
Okay,
and you might be like, what's a 40k? So that's not going to help anything.
Right, okay.
So, the Bonereapers, the Ossiarch Bonereapers, they are one of 4 factions in the Death Grand Alliance, and I feel like within that alliance they are particularly unique from a mechanical point of view, from a model range point of view, and I think they have an incredibly unique aesthetic that evokes that old school feeling of classic miniature game play, where you've got units of rank and file infantry and cavalry and catapults and a general, and it's got a very classic feel to it, but it doesn't play like a very run-of-the-mill army. It's got a lot of unique mechanics that make it feel very powerful and very fun to play, and it's got lots of interactivity. So I would say if you are into like classic looking armies that are rank and file soldiers, but you also are kind of into dead things, this would give you both of that. Like, it ticks both of those boxes.
Now, one thing that's really cool about the lore of Ossiarch Bonereapers is one of the very first things it says in preparation for this. We read a lot online. We read the Wikia, the Lexiconum. We also, of course, read the Codex.
Yeah.
It's cool to read those. I was just saying that reading those online gives you a good sense. But to get all the cute little story nuggets, you have to really get into the book.
Yeah, you do.
One of the very first things it says, it is a completely new form of unlife.
Yes, which it is. Which is super cool.
So let me see if I have this right. How a Bonereaper is made.
Right.
And let's start by comparing it to. We're gonna for now leave Flesh Eater Courts out of the equation.
Yeah, they're over there.
They're
doing
we're gonna
stuff.
talk about how Soulblight make an army, and how Nighthaunt make an army. Soulblight are animating. Powerful vampires and necromancers are animating corpses.
Yes.
Basically, to do things for them. On the other side, Nighthaunt are using the actual souls of dead things.
They're kind of like corralling angry souls.
Corralling horrible souls. Yeah. Right. Nagash's imposed all these little haha. Now you have this happening to you, and now you have to come fight for funny things.
Yeah.
They're very organic in a way. In this way, they're
very classic.
They're very classic.
We all understand the concept of a zombie rises from the dead and wants to eat people, or a ghost is mad because it died when it didn't want to die. Right.
If you are into mixology, which is really called bartending, these guys are like kind of making like very trendy right now a milk punch. Right. You are synthesizing an insane. Everything is kind of being synthesized.
Yeah.
And reformed in this really interesting, bizarre way that I have to commend whoever designed this army for, because they said, how can we make a new death army? Said, okay, Soulblight just bring bodies back. There's no souls. It's just magic bringing bodies back. And Nighthaunt are just the souls, no bodies. This is, we take the bones, we kind of rearrange them, break them down, rearrange them, take collections of souls, synthesize them, break them all up, and then sort of match what we want.
Yeah.
Do I have this right with this?
Yeah.
It's insanely synthesized.
Yeah, these are like, and it's actually more akin to.
It is like a hot dog.
Yeah, it's like a hot dog. It's actually no, it's like a ramen. It's taking all the best bits and putting them together and making something new that's better than the sum of its parts. Right?
Okay, right.
So it's like, these are the ramen undead. These are noodle boys now.
Okay.
So there's 2 elements to it as well, which I think is the really clever part. There's the bodies themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's the souls that go in them. And it's kind of like all construct. So the whole reason that this faction only exists because Nagash is spiteful.
Yes.
Because he made a deal with Sigmar about all the souls, and Sigmar was like, yeah, all the souls, they definitely go to the underworld, and you're the boss of them, and Nagash is like, great, okay.
Although the more you read about all the different factions and all the tricks they had for Nagash, about how they get to keep their souls, the elves, everyone...
It's like taxation.
Everyone had a real trick for
everyone's
Nagash.
got a loophole.
Everyone's like, oh, sure, Nagash. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you'll get the souls, wink.
Yeah. So Stormcast, Sigmar just stopped sending the souls to the afterworld and just started bringing them back and remaking them. And so Nagash was like, well, if you can do that, I will do that too. And so Nagash, he takes all he types that's the other taxation theme in this book, is that they have this natural resource which is
these
bones.
are actually tax collectors.
Yeah, they are
tax collecting army. Step one.
Yeah, because their whole faction is made of the bones of everything. So they gather the bones, then their mages shape the bones into whatever forms they need, and they basically are an army of constructs. They're not an army of the dead, they're an army of constructs. They are like Necrons, they're robots.
Yeah.
But
they are fantasy robots.
They are.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing is, what they then do is, instead of just putting okay, here's a soul, ghost, go in the body, and now you've got a body, you can be wackier and you're harder to kill.
Like a rubric marine.
Right, yeah. Right. What instead they do is the soul masons take all the best components of different souls. So okay, you were a really good swordsman, you were a really good sergeant, you were a really good archer. I'm going to take all those elements, I'm going to discard everything else that made you human and made you care.
Or put that somewhere else.
Yeah, I'll move that elsewhere, and then I'm going to mold this in and just make, the perfect soldier that doesn't know any fear, always follows orders, needs nothing, and I'm going to put it into this, really durable, hard-to-destroy body, and then I'm going to give it a magic sword, and then I'm going to form it into legions of these things, and they're going to go out and conquer the world.
And it's powered slightly by grave sand, which is the realm stone of Shyish.
Yeah, they form it into crystals, that's what houses the soul for the construct.
Now, it's wild, actually. I knew about the bone part of it, and I never really thought so much about the rest of it. Even to the point, I was earlier today reading about Necropolis Stalkers, that they have the 4 heads, the 4 faces. Each one of those faces, in that particular case, they do put a whole soul of a particular fighting style from a particular fearsome warrior in that. It's very crazy. They are doing... It's just crazy. It is a seriously synthesized, manufactured army.
Yeah, and unlike the other Death armies, it's the one army where everything in the army is purposeful and elite. It's the best it can be. It very much is Nagash's answer to Stormcast, where Sigmar is taking humans and making demigods. Nagash is taking souls and bones and remains and turning them into elite soldiers and warriors. And when you read about the Katakros, who is the leader of this faction, he kind of made a deal with Nagash because he's such a good general that he was Nagash felt he had to negotiate with him, and his whole he is the Napoleon of Age of Sigmar.
Now, Katakros actually is a single soul.
He is a single soul.
He was a presumably human.
Yep.
He was a human.
He lived in the original Ossian Empire, which was in Shyish. So Shyish does have. It is part of it is the afterworlds, the afterlives of all the different societies, but it's also got its own civilizations and its own.
It does, yeah. It's actually one of the more interesting realms in that regard. It is, and it makes you see why it allied with Order.
Yeah,
because it has a serious number of civilizations,
right,
and cities of humans. There's even Dwarden, I think, in it, and elves. All the normal races live there.
Yeah.
It sounds like nowadays it's a horrible place to live.
Yeah, because essentially Katakros conquered it.
Right.
He conquered all of the civilizations, and now the Bonereapers are essentially the civilized settlements.
What is the new? There's a city in there.
Hammerhal. No, is it?
No, it starts with an L. They're all priests and stuff. I forget.
Oh.
Yellow and black is their colors. I can't remember.
This is from the Cities book, right? Because they've expanded out from Hammerhal, because they've now
right. Hammerhall is near it or something, though. You're right.
That was that's where the Realm Gate is. For Shyish.
So but there is a actual city that's set in Shyish.
Right.
Okay, so I think you're absolutely right. Though when you said that this is his answer to Stormcast, when you read the lore, that's actually how they start getting made. It's because he's I want something that can fight the Stormcast and
Yeah, and you've kind of what I like what a common thread through all of Sigmar has been how do all the other factions react to Sigmar basically creating super soldiers?
Yeah.
And like Bellacor's response was, well, I'm going to make it so that their souls can't return, so they become mortal again. That was his response.
Yeah.
Archeon's was to make Varangard to form his elite units, harbingers of his destruction, and then Nagash was like, well, I'll just build my own all-conquering army.
Yeah. So no footing in the old world. People like to compare them to Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
But I think that they're not. I don't know Tomb King lore.
They definitely share some DNA with Tomb King. So I think the construct side of it was definitely inspired by Tomb Kings.
Okay.
Because again, they were very different. They were all bound by the will of the Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
And they had constructs that were like guardians of the tombs, but then would go to war with them. That were imbued with magic. And they had the Lich Priests who would do all of these rituals to ensure the souls stayed tethered to the bodies for eternity. So there's definitely some connective tissue.
Yeah.
This is like Tomb Kings 2.0, but with again the AOSification of the faction to give it its own unique flavor and vibe. But there's definitely also Arkan is involved, and he is from the Tomb King era.
Oh right. Arkan is yeah.
So the fact that he is the one that oversaw the faction and is second only to Katakros is kind of again it's part of that DNA.
We joke that they're tax collectors. So a big part of what these guys do now is it's dark, but it's almost humorous.
Yeah.
They travel around.
It's not subtle about its commentary.
Yeah, they travel around, and they have often they've now been around for a few thousand years in the mortal realms.
It's hard to tell. Time is a bit loosey-goosey.
Time is loosey-goosey, but they do mention that they will show up sometimes to settlements, and they'll speak in an ancient tongue that they don't realize that the people don't even speak that language there anymore. And what they're doing is that they show up to settlements, and different settlements have basically made agreements with them. They don't inherently actually want to just rampage across the mortal realms and kill things.
Because again, the whole resources, it's sustainability.
Yeah.
They need civilizations to exist, to reproduce, to make people so that they can die, and then the bones can be claimed.
Right. So what they do is they are looking for bones. And this is, even their train piece is called the Bone Tithe Nexus.
Yeah, that's literally the thing that they put in settlements.
Yeah, they put this in settlements so that you can go put your bones there.
Have you ever seen Bug's Life?
Yes.
It's basically the plot of Bug's Life. They show up, they're like, hey, if you don't want to all die, give us all the food. Yeah. And then they leave, and then they come back again.
Right. The grasshoppers.
Yeah, the grasshoppers.
Yeah, they are pretty much that.
Yeah.
They show up and they say, we want bones. And listen, oftentimes they're like, listen, like a few thousand years ago, you made an agreement to give us your bones or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why? We didn't make that agreement, right? One of the sub-factions, the Stelarch Lords, are super jerks about it and love to make ridiculous demands that cannot be met.
Yeah.
And then if they're failed by one bone, they just kill everybody and take everyone's bone.
Yeah, they basically just keep, every time they come back, they increase the amount until the point where they know they can't pay, and then there's a final reaping, a final tithe where they just kill everyone and take all the bones.
Take their bones that way, right? Yeah. If they can't take your bones when they're in the graveyard, they'll take
Yeah.
So they're kind of they're single-minded in this way. They're just collecting bones literally, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I guess one of my questions was, maybe you know the answer to this, maybe you don't, what's going on with the souls are just not being destroyed physically and they're recollecting them, or how are they?
Well, souls are naturally always filtering into Shaiish from all the different realms, so the ones that don't get
that don't have some loophole. Yeah.
So that's when the soul kind of, that's why it's more a focus on, I think, the bone tithe, because the soul thing is a constant stream.
Souls are easy.
Yeah, they're always coming. That's why they can take 4 souls and make one Vortex Guard with them, because they've got so many, and they can take the best bits from each one.
That's interesting. So in the lore, other than going around and collecting bones, anything else come to mind with these guys? I think that is kind of like,
Well, I think like Katakros' whole deal and Nagash's whole reason for having these is because he wants to show the other Grand Alliances that Death are not to be double crossed. Like this is the you all found your loopholes and your soul things, and isn't that cute? Well, now I'm gonna march my unkillable, unstoppable super legions, and they're gonna conquer you.
right.
And I'm gonna get my souls that way because one of the cool things about the lore is that Katakros like attacks the 8 points.
Yeah, he
goes
lot.
to the heart of chaos.
Yeah.
And he wins.
Yeah, him
Like,
and
while
him and
Archeon is
Oleander, Lady
While
Oleander together.
While
Right?
Archeon is busy waging wars, Katakros just walks into his house
Yeah.
and kicks the door in, and like that's something that the 8 points has never like fallen. Like since chaos rose to power. So the fact that Katakros and the Bonereapers did it, and now they have a foothold in the 8 points where they are holding the line. They basically taken the 8 point side of the Shyish gate so that Chaos can't easily get into Shyish.
Yeah.
And now Katakros is holding it.
Yeah.
So like yeah.
And in game, of course, any Chaos faction would do miserable against Bone
Oh, yeah,
Reaper.
yeah.
So you can tell they're never taking that.
Yeah.
They're never taking it anytime
Yeah, I don't
soon.
know. Archeon would probably destroy that army just because he's Archeon, but like,
Yeah.
they're it goes to, and again, the books are always very exaggerated in like the
Of course,
military aspect, but like when you march 2 million Mortek Guard into the 8 points,
Yeah.
you kill all the Chaos Gdudes who are sat on the other side
Right.
playing cards and eating stuff and messing around,
Yeah,
because these guys are just always disciplined. In fact, the only time they've been really truly laid low and defeated was when Teclis went to Shyish in the previous set and kind of just went and wrecked them.
The high elves, or not high elves, but Lumineth have wrecked them a couple. They had a back and forth, but it seemed like the Lumineth, and then these guys went and attacked the mountain.
Yes, so
Ymetrica, right, and did some damage there, but then ultimately got kicked out.
yeah, and that was the retaliation.
Yeah.
Teclis walked in and sort of like went into the heart of Katakros's domain, like Ossiarch, and went and messed up a whole bunch of stuff to sort of send a message of like. He also, I think he carved a big rune into Shyish of like.
Oh really?
Yeah, like left a calling card.
I do love the pettiness of the different gods. Yeah.
To like send a message to Nagash being like, hey, Shyish is off limits. Don't come back.
I also, I was reading through some of the stories. They're such pills. Which is a PG word that I'll use for now. Strict sticklers, I guess. There's a story about them in this book about having a deal with the Caradon overlords, and the Caradon overlords are mining, and then while they're mining, they're collecting bones as well. And the Caradon overlords are like, hey, listen, if you take all the bones you dig up, you can come sell them to us. But the wording is like all the bones you can store on your ship.
Yeah.
And then this is two super nitpicky factions. These two factions should never do deals together because they're both such jerks about contracts and paperwork. And then when they show up, the Bone Reaper's like, well, we said all the bones you can store. That includes your bones. Yeah. Right, of the living dwarves on the ships. And they attack them and kill them and take all their bones, which is gruesome. And it's like they do that a lot. They do that this kind of stuff a lot. They're like, well, we said we'll get your bones. Yeah.
I mean, that messenger guy, Vok Mortian, he walks around with the head of 3 kings on a little belt. Like, you should kind of know what you're getting into. Yeah. You see that guy rock up being like, hey, let's make a deal. Yeah.
It never works out well. Let's chat a few lore-wise. Let's chat a few sub-factions and also specific units or anything that we want to chat about. Sub-faction-wise, there's a few different sub-factions. Some of them are... Crematorians are interesting. They basically...
They're my favorite.
They're your favorite? Yeah. They are not trying to live.
No.
They intentionally want to basically like explode and fire.
Yeah, they're like they're all very volatile. Like the souls they use, they build in volatility so that they can like when they die in combat, they explode
and take lives with them.
Yeah,
right?
so they're very much like they kind of just let their opponents kill themselves by destroying them because they can just be rebuilt.
Maybe the worst rule-wise faction is one of the coolest lore-wise, which is the Ivory.
The Ivory Host? No, that's a.
I can't remember their name.
Which one? I don't know which one you're thinking of.
They're the ones who are made from bones of monsters.
Oh, the Petrifex Elite.
No, Petrifex Elite are the nomadic ones.
No, they're the ones that are made of the
Ivory Host. You're right. Ivory Host. Ivory Hosts are made from like bones of monsters, and are like ready to go crazy at any moment.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
they're kind of cool.
They're kind of feral.
Yeah. You have I mentioned the Stellarch Lords, the ones who are real jerks about the tax collecting. You have no Myriad. This is
I love this name. This name
cool name.
is so cool.
It is cool. This is Arkans.
Yeah, this is Arkan's faction.
Arkan's faction, right? Just strongly against magic.
Yes.
And I don't know the lore. I don't remember the lore behind why they're so.
He basically just he oversees the building of them, and he infuses in the bone a natural resistance to magic with his own magical energy. So it's like he just makes them incredibly durable to magic.
Because he's Arkan.
Yeah, because he's Arkan.
And then of course you have the two here, the Petrifex Elite, which have been popular on the tabletop for a long time.
Yeah.
In the previous book, it was pretty much the only one people took.
Yeah.
They're just
because they're made from fossilized bone, so they're actually made more of rock than they are bone, which makes them incredibly durable.
Petrified. And then the Praetorians are Mortis Praetorians, are like the actual army of
they're Catacrosis Legion. They're the ones that are like super disciplined, have the best strategies. You know, they aren't feral, they don't explode. They are like the best soldiers.
They don't explode.
They don't explode, and they aren't crazy.
I saw a while back. I think somebody in our Discord actually had posted a Crematorian's army they're working on, where they were like lava-y on the inside.
Oh,
It was super cool looking. And you see that actually is the picture they have here. A lot of cool modeling. The modeling opportunities based on which sub-faction you are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Similar, reminds me almost of, in this way, of Sylvanet.
Yes.
Like you say like, oh, I'm Winterbrow or whatever. I want to be this. I want to be the dwindling for my season. But I'm going to be, the one that's around Karnath Hunters. So I'm going to make Karnath Hunters, and they're going to be orange leaves and stuff.
There's a lot of visual identity in the factions that you can look at an army on the table and be like, oh, that's Petrifex Elite.
That should be Petrifex. Yeah. That's clearly Crematorians.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And also, may I say, the most Games Workshop faction that might ever have existed, because it is made entirely of skulls and or bones. So it is
true.
It is the most.
It is. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. It is.
In terms of
every picture for they have the little pictures of
all skulls.
It's all skulls. You're right. I just realized that
per model ratio,
most skulls.
Like you think about every horse guy has a bunch of spirit skulls inside the body.
Yeah.
So like
now this was interesting too. It's a really messed up society even to be in.
Yeah.
Because it has a caste system. And it has this really messed up rule where you can only ever go down.
Oh yeah,
you cannot go up in your
cast. If you mess up, you get demoted to a horse.
You will get turned into a horse.
Yeah.
It's
so like the guys riding to battle on mounts are riding the failures that they replace.
Exactly.
I love it. I think it's great.
It's so messed up.
So funny.
Yeah, your bones get recollected and you get turned into something worse.
Well, yeah, because you can't die.
You might eventually just be part of a catapult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want those little legs on the catapult, and you just that's it. That's you forever
rough. Now. It's so rough. It is like a lot of death factions, grim.
But they have the most unique like societal like identity of all the death factions. Like if maybe apart from
much more unified.
Yeah. I love the Flesh Eater cults lore where they all think they're like courting lords. And they live this medieval life and they're actually just crazy cannibals. So that's really awesome. But like I love the Bonereapers stuff of like just how brutal and like deconstructing it is, and everything is. Serves a purpose, and if you aren't serving the purpose, you'll still serve a purpose. It just will be something else.
Yeah, Now, before we talk about play style, chatting the model line and painting opportunity for this a little bit, hobby wise.
Yeah.
I again, I do like the idea that you have the option to. I think it is an army that if you want to do this thing that a lot of people do when they play an army and not really lean into one particular sub faction with their paint job, I think you do have the ability to do that.
Yeah, totally.
But you also can do you. Do they have? They do have color schemes associated with their different.
Yeah, they do.
But they don't feel. They don't come through a lot.
It's more the coloring of like the shields and the weapons.
Okay.
Is that where it kind of that's where it kind of comes from.
Um,
But like yeah, you get like there's like a different shield color,
okay,
different
they do,
armor
yeah.
colors. So yeah, Moist Praetorian is the classic.
It's like
It's
dark
kind of a blue, but it's like a purple. Null Myriad is this really nice green and purple combo. Crematorians. I actually like Crematorians. They have more like the armor is more metallic.
Yeah.
I actually paint my Bone Reapers where the challenge I gave myself was that none of it would be metallic. So
Okay.
it's all because again I wanted it to feel like they were built from natural materials. So even the shields I paint non-metallic
Okay.
to get that vibe. But I've seen some really nice paint jobs where they do the sort of bronze, the verdigris like bronze
Yeah.
with the bones is really really striking
Yeah.
on a tabletop. It's a beautiful army when it's all painted up. It's like because of all the regiments and the banners. Like I
Yeah.
love banners.
It's an insanely unified looking army,
Yes.
especially for death armies. Soulblight may be an outlier in that it's kind of got all kinds of different things going on depending on what you're painting.
What Soul Blight?
Yeah.
Oh, it all just looks the same to me. It's
Well-
all just masses of.
Well,
floaty
yeah, but
ghosts.
it's like totally different. You can do zombies one look. You can do skeletons.
Oh,
another look.
sorry.
You're thinking
Soul Blight.
Nighthaunt.
I'm thinking Nighthaunt.
Nighthaunt
Yeah.
are kind of similar, actually, in a way to these guys. It's a little more unified. Oftentimes, painted more unified.
But it's a unified chaos. Like, I can't tell what
No.
units are, but
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
very clear. Like, okay, there's the Mortec
Yeah.
Guard, they're the Stalkers. There's a very like the silhouettes are very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think the other reason I would say that hobby wise you would dive into this army is it's weirdly in general Sigmar's a lower model count than 40k.
Yep.
This army, especially depending on your build, outside of the Mortrek Guard, there is really not any kind of massing
No.
of anything.
No, I mean,
And
what
we-
army did I play with you the other week? How many models did I have?
Well, you had 20 Mortrek Guard.
No, the before those changes.
Oh,
I think
before
my
that
previous
was-
army was like
Yeah.
I think it was like 21 models.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's very small.
Before, but even with 20 Mortrek Guard, it's like 20 Mortrek Guard, and then maybe 11 other models, something
yeah,
like that.
it's very expensive. It's very elite. That again, I think that's the other thing that separates it from the other death factions. Is
Yeah.
It's very elite. You
It
don't
is-
get big pools of models.
It is a low model count army. Talk to me about its playstyle. Like, where's it lie in terms of durability? What's it doing in each phase? What kind of person what kind of playstyle? Who's this going to attract?
So I think if you like complexity, I think this is a good army. There's a lot of rules interactions. They have their own unique command point system with lots of different abilities, which represents their flexibility and tactical acumen on the battlefield.
Yeah.
They always have an answer to any situation, but you as a player need to understand how to spend those resources and when to activate abilities and when is the best way to use things and which fight to use your bludgeon, which is the
Right.
best combat for that. Which one do I want to give my better ward save to?
Yeah.
So there's lots of different rules like that because not only do you have a list of I think 9 or 10 universal command abilities that every unit can use, every unit also generally has one on their scroll.
It's
So there's lots of rules.
Yeah, it's not actually. I think we always want to know how synergistic. It's not actually aggressively synergistic. I think almost Nighthaunt might be more synergistic.
Oh, definitely.
Because each unit can kind of stand on its own, but like
Yes.
you're saying, you have a limited number of. You have a lot of resources, but you can only go certain places certain times.
Yeah, but you can adapt most units to any situation given the situation. I think the one thing
Yeah.
I always tell people about this army is that their hammers are also their anvils.
Yes, that's
so
it.
you don't
That's
have
big.
a unit that is like this unit's going to stay here and take damage and just hold the line because that unit with the
Yeah.
right buffs will also kill anything it
Only
touches.
really the only unit I kind of ever think about that I'm not that scared about is the horses. They're fast. They can hit hard, but they typically don't.
again, like cavalry, they're good on the charge, but then after that charge,
they're kind of tough.
Yeah, but again, they're very durable.
They're very durable. Not a lot of shooting.
Practically no shooting.
We didn't talk about the coolest unit, which is the crawler.
Right, so
model-wise, maybe one of the coolest models in the game.
Yeah, again, like going back to that classic army look, they have a big artillery piece that's this huge catapult that fires skulls and souls at people.
I'll preemptively for nerds out there, for historical nerds, point out that of course Steven knows it's a trebuchet.
Yes, it's an actual trebuchet.
We just don't want to say that word, which
but it is called a catapult.
It is a catapult.
It's a catapult. Well, it's actually not called a catapult. It's a Mortek crawler. Because it has loads of teeny tiny legs.
Feet that move it. It walks on its own. And it's really a beautiful model. Look it up. I did not pull a picture of it up, but look it up. It's really a diorama.
Yeah, it's got like 5 guys on it. You got a guy in the wheel.
There's
you got
a guy shoveling skulls into the thing that flings more skull. Yeah.
So yeah, you can. The army does have that as shooting, and again, it's got that it's a very Roman army where it's like it's using the trebuchets to weaken the enemy, and then the legionnaires are marching up to finish the job.
It's a very Roman army.
Yeah.
Only really if you did not take stalkers or a mortis guard or the Morghasts, I guess the harvester, it would be insanely. I mean, it would look like a historical army. You have your cavalry, your infantry, your trebuchets, your commanders. The Liege Cavalos is perfect, right?
Yeah, it also doesn't its characters are more support. None of them. There is no Archeon where it's like I'm just going to push this forward and he's going to kill anything he touches.
Even Kakros only really gets down from his chair if it's a worthy battle.
Yeah, which again it feels thematic. So he can do work, but it has to be the right situation. So the heroes are there to support the frontline troops, again, very much like an army.
I have to say I love the arrogance of a lot of the characters. The high characters, like Marathi is amazing, just like her antics and just the diva-ness of a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
Kakros is not even getting up to fight when he's in combat with 40 Skaven.
I love it so much.
He just doesn't even bother to get up.
He just lets his boys do it.
He
has his
doesn't
entourage,
it's gotta be basically like a monster hero, right? Does it have to be
just hero? I think
just hero. Yeah. He doesn't even bother to get up if it's like Stonehorn Riders.
Yeah, I love
he's
it.
Like, I'm not.
My favorite change in this whole book was that it used to be. He was like a Mortal Kombat boss where it's like you had to kill all of his henchmen and then he would okay, now it's my turn to fight.
That's right.
They changed it where now if a hero comes along, he basically tells his boys that he's going to deal with this, and then you get to fight with him on the top profile.
Yeah.
Because he actually is a character that when he's not taking any damage, he doesn't do many attacks because he's letting his entourage do the work.
Yeah. I love that. I love how that even comes through in the rules.
Yeah, it's great.
I imagine there's been a Bone Reaper player or two that's been inconvenienced by that and would like that top profile against, some Chaos Knight unit or something. But still, it's really cool.
Yeah. It's always fun when your opponent charges the unit into Kakros but leaves a hero nearby and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to pile around here, get him in, and then Kakros is going to murder this unit on his own.
Magic-wise, I find that this army is maybe actually a little bit below average, unless you're taking Arkan.
They're very much a magic support army. Yeah. Again, like with the heroes, they don't have a combat hero per se. The magic is the same. They aren't doing a lot of aggressive magic damage. They're doing a lot of buffs and utility and supporting the units.
It's not a lot of pluses to cast. No. It's they have the one where they the first spell each time automatically.
Yeah, the Dark Acolyte.
That's quite good.
It is good, but again, I think the army kind of needs it because the buffs are so essential to. Because this is an army where the weakness and the strength is that the power is all in the units. So if you're stripping the units away, the army dramatically weakens.
Yeah.
Much more than a lot of other armies.
Right.
A lot of other armies they can just they can lose units, but as long as the heroes are out there doing the business, they don't really care.
Yeah. Speed, as far as fast moving around, doing a lot of cool movement tricks. Also, if you're into that kind of stuff, this army, it can surprise you because anyone can get this plus to move.
Yeah,
with the command.
It's surprisingly quite quick. It can
be lots of it. but that's not really, I would say, teleports are not common.
No.
Coming in off the sides, anything like that doesn't really do any of those kind of
No,
tricks.
outside of the archive, they're the only real thing that does the.
They can deep strike.
They can deep strike, yeah, because they've got wings. So you could build a very mobile, quick teleporty army if you went like Arcan and then just a bunch of different Archive units. You could, because they can be battle lines.
They're
so
battle line
you
with
could
him,
build
yeah,
an
yeah.
interesting rapid strike
It'd
army.
be super cool, and that is actually also worth pointing out is that there are a few different there's a handful of large scale approaches to building this army, right? You can go, like we said, you can go Mortreck Guard and Catapults and Gothazar Harvesters.
Yep.
They've gone worse, but they're not awful. You're taking another go at them, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're terrible, but I think it's very easy now for your opponent to destroy it before he gets to do anything. I think is the big weakness now.
This happened in our game, but it really didn't. I mean, it cost me, right? I sat there and had to do that.
Oh yeah, you pushed in half your army.
Well, everything else got to
yeah. So I mean, it's one of its big strengths, I think, above anything else, is its just raw durability. Like on scroll for scroll, point for point, this is probably one of the most durable armies in the entire game.
Oh, I think so, for sure. Durable. I also think it's an army that, for the most part, I would say if you're coming from 40k and you're used to kind of having your army be doing what you thought it would do on your turn, I think this army is pretty high up in that ranking. I would put Lumineth up there too, I think.
Yeah.
My army is going to do the thing I wanted to do in my turn, and my crazy awesome stuff is not going to be like threes again, or maybe 3s and 4s or something like that.
Yeah, you don't really spam.
It's not, it's not towards the Skaven or like Gloomspite angle of like stuff might go wrong and I need redundancy layers or whatever.
Yeah, again,
and you couldn't afford them. You couldn't afford redundancy
No.
layers in this army.
And it's very flexible. Like if you need to get across the board because your opponent is a shooting army, you can get across the board pretty fast. If you want to sit there and turtle and hold a position, no other army is going to do it better than this army.
That's very true.
You really, if you want to kill 30 Mortec Guard that are holding a point, you have to commit to killing that.
It's got to be a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
So, and I think they do, now less so than before, but like, even the Mortec Guard will catch people off guard. You'll go into them and think, oh, this is just the infantry unit. They're not going to do a lot of damage. They can turn around and straight up murder things.
Like you said, many units in the book are a hammer and an anvil.
Yes.
Yeah. Mortreck Guard is certainly one of them. Okay, listen, we're out of time. We had a poll up that asking you what army we're going to cover next. And it looks like Slaves to Darkness have won. So next week we will cover Slaves to Darkness. Steven, last words. Why should someone play this army?
Because I think it's a rewarding army to pilot. I think it has some strengths and it has some weaknesses, but I think there's lots of versatility. I think you can do different builds with it. I think the sub-factions change up the playstyle. I think it's got 2 cool centerpiece heroes in Katakros and Arkan.
Yep.
I think it's a gorgeous army on the tabletop. And I just think it's a lot of fun. I think if you're going to play Death, I would definitely consider Bonereapers as one of your options.
Kind of weirdly, though, one thing we didn't mention, as far as Death armies go, it has a complicated relationship with bringing models back.
Yeah, it does.
I would say very few can beat Soulblight in this endeavor. Nighthaunt kind of piecemeal do it all over the place a little bit all the time. This army has a few places where it does it really well, like a Gothazar Harvester Mortec Guard.
Yeah.
Other places where it's a little too elite to do it in a way that's like convincingly have that death feel of bringing stuff back.
Yeah.
And there's my whole unit died and now I get to roll and half of it comes back.
No,
or anything
God,
like
no.
that.
I wish. It's more about not losing things than it is about bringing things back. Like, Soulblight, you throw a unit in, you're going to lose half of them, but you're probably going to get most of them back. This is not...
And you want that. That's the play style, right?
Yeah, this is not like that. I think if you want to play Death as a faction, but you want to play more like a traditional Order style army, I think this is the faction. Because they play like a regimented, organized military as opposed to a horde of shambling X.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't have any big monsters, though. Doesn't really have much shooting. So if you like big monsters or you like lots of shooting, Probably
those
not the
are
faction.
missing, and that is something we meant to talk about that we didn't get to. But briefly, what's missing in? What would you want to see in this army? We've always people always bring up Mortech Guard archers.
Yeah, I would want to see those two gaps filled. I would
Yeah.
want to see some shooting units that can pepper enemies at distance, like
Yeah.
Mortech archers. I would want to see a couple of big bone constructs. Really take the concept of these are all things forged out of bone,
Yeah.
and do it bigger,
Yeah.
so we can have some really decent monsters,
like a
or
big
some,
war machine or a big monster.
yeah, like a big bone giant. Like, if
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna take Tomb King DNA, give me a big bone giant construct.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that. So I think if they did a second wave, plugged in those gaps, I think this would be a really well-rounded faction that could do a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
or specialize. Because if you had archers and catapults, and they've already done a hero, the new hero they made is kind of a support.
Oh, the
catapult
Ossi
piece.
Factor. He builds big
Yeah.
things. Yeah, yeah.
And he buffs the catapult. So
Yeah.
give an archer unit, and you could kind of make a shooty turtle Bone Reaper army. I think that'd be
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay, folks, next week we will chat Slaves to D. This is an army we both love. We both think it's super cool.
Yeah.
Maybe one of our favorite Chaos armies.
Yes.
So we're excited to talk it. And there's a lot to talk about there, too. A lot of different builds
Yeah,
going on.
we'll have to work out a strategy of what we're going to talk about. Because
Right.
that book is like, I don't know, twice
That
as
book
thick
is,
as this
yeah,
one.
some of these books are going to be hard to get through in an hour. This one was. Awesome. Guys, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Like,